Good day, grade 10 learners, and welcome to our theory recap for term 3. Now, in term 3, you would have gone through module 1.8, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, and 6.3. So I'm going to breeze through this so we can use this for revision purposes. Right, so module 1.8 was looking at the impact of ICT, and it looked at ICTs, how it influences your life, your lifestyle, the home office, education, and dealing with what are known as computer criminals as well. So they just touched on the fact that ICTs have influenced every facet of our lives, from the jobs to how we communicate, going to the bank, things like that, interacting with friends. It's influenced how we communicate with people as well via social networking, instant messaging, blogging, emailing, all of this. But what was important here was this: you can never really switch off. So you could have a little scenario around a question like that. Then with this, we also have access to tons of information, and we know it's not always true information. So we need to just bear that in mind as well. So yes, we can access information via email, the internet, SMS, MMS, phone calls, TV, radio, all these different things. But we need to analyze and filter that. Does it have an impact on our leisure as well? Yes, it does. The way we watch movies, video, there's internet TV, video on demand. Even when you make bookings for holidays and things like that, booking flights, all of those type of things, we can do that from the comfort of any device, as long as we have an internet connection. Okay, so has it made an impact on the home office? Yes, it has, because we've got all this different type of software that allows us to do so much more. We end up saving money as well, and we can use the PC to do all of these different things. Okay. By schools using ICTs, we've also improved there. Again, software for things like timetables. We've got our office suite. We can communicate easier with parents. I know some of you use the D6, some using emails. We use spreadsheets to calculate marks. Schools now, it's a standard to have websites, etc. And within the classroom, obviously some classes are, embracing this a lot more than others. But the basics, and I assume so because I know a lot of schools don't have that, the basics should be things like, data projectors. Some go with electronic whiteboards, some use televisions. Lessons and worksheets end up changing because of what you were using. You've got your Google Classroom and all these types of things that we now have that can be used by teachers. Then from the learner side of things, the mere fact that you are watching Education with Mr. Hambury is an example of that. We can also do a lot in Excel, Word. There are different programs. We can access things from the internet, take videos, record, all this type of thing. But just talking about the impact on education on your side as learners. Okay, so yes, there I am in my own video, just showing you that. Okay, so there is another impact on you as learners, and we've spoken about the internet addiction. I know some of you don't like putting that phone down, and I've given you this challenge before. Take this challenge seriously. Can you put your phone down for about an hour and a half, or even just an hour? When you get home, you put it down, you leave the sound on so you can hear the notifications coming through or messages. But discipline yourself to say, you know what, for the next hour, I'm maybe only going to spend time with family, or I'm only going to spend time doing my work. I'm not going to be distracted by that phone, okay? Because unfortunately, this is real. Yeah, some spend more time online with friends, which ends up disturbing sleeping and eating patterns, especially during the holidays, because then you want to play with friends online, and it becomes an all-night thing, and then tomorrow you can't get up. So yeah, this is just some of the impact that it's having. Then we've got a term called flaming as well that would have come up. This is when you send or receive an email that's designed to harass or bully online. But folks, we don't bully online, do we? No, we don't. No, we don't. We are not like that. It can also include setting up a blog or sending SMSs, messages, WhatsApps, whatever it is, which are deliberately set out to cause pain and suffering to another person. But again, I'm confident that no one here, as part of the Education with Mr. Hambury family, does any of that. Okay. Right, then we spoke about computer criminals, and they just mentioned the different types of crime. So please just know the definition of computer criminals, and then the fact that you have hackers, crackers, you've got identity theft, financial theft, child trafficking, and pornography. I just want to touch on hacking and cracking if they don't mention it here. So your hackers are the people who will want to break through, some sort of IT security system for the purpose of, and this is where the difference comes in. With hacking, you're doing it just to show that you can. A cracker is doing it to get something there. So whether it's financial gain, whether it's, looking for certain data, whatever the case is, but they go in with malicious intent, whereas the hacker ideally is going in just to show that he can. So why do folks try to steal your identity? Because they want to gain access to information. Most of the time it's just your money, and taking that info to also open up credit cards and loans and things like that. And some do it to spread false information. Okay, these are all crimes. We don't do this. Here we go. This section on hackers and crackers. So yeah, I mentioned to you earlier, the computer criminals who break into your computer systems, they are hackers and crackers. And the hackers do it mainly for prestige, whereas the crackers want to perform a crime. Now, did you know that companies that specialize in computer security sometimes hire hackers to work for them? Why? Because they found loopholes in their security system, right? I'm not going to say that this happens here with us, but it does happen in the US quite a bit. Okay, why do they try to steal an identity? We spoke about that. The punchline here they mention is that you will be responsible for all the trouble they cause with your identity. This is a problem because they steal your ID and they open up an account with your ID. Those are your details, which means everything comes back to you. And two of the most common ways of doing this is through phishing and spoofing. Now, in 2024, the cybercrime stats, I just wanted to share that with you. They say it showed that you had that cybercrime was up over 40% over the 2020 figures. The country with the next highest victims per million of internet users was the US. So the UK was the highest. The US comes in, and then they mention here that 2021 saw an average of $787,000 lost every hour due to data breaches. So this is a real thing. And this is why you see a lot of people going into cyber security. Okay, and then they mention a bit more there, included some stats, just so that you can see how real this actually is. Then with our phishing, this is a form of internet fraud which aims to obtain valuable financial information such as your credit card details, ID numbers, etc. So when you think of phishing, like you're literally throwing out bait and you're hoping the person's going to catch it, they take it, and then they end up giving you their details. And spoofing is where cybercriminals create a fake website that looks identical to the original. However, it's located on their server. So when you enter those details, you're actually entering it on one of their servers. And you can see they try to steal your money by phishing, creating fake websites, fake virus alarms, bogus lottery winnings. I mean, if you get these SMSs that tell you that you've won the lotto and you haven't entered, folks, you haven't won, right? We need to use some common sense here as well. Then employees can be computer criminals. You might ask, but how? Like, how do the ordinary employees fit in? Wait until somebody's angry at their boss. Wait until the employer has really made the employee fed up. Then you'll find out, okay? Because the employers have the easiest access to the computers. They have access sometimes to sensitive information, different software, all these things, even hardware can be stolen. And like I said to you, make them mad and you can have revenge actions against perceived injustices by the company. Okay, so that can happen. Then you obviously have our organized computer crime section where you've got, different syndicates involved in running spam businesses, stealing secrets between companies, copying and selling. At that stage, it was still CDs and DVDs illegally. These days, they do a whole lot of other stuff. And then obviously taking your identity to forge documents, passports, all those type of things. There you can see just some stats from the Global Economic Crime and Fraud Survey in 2022 showing you that, the different types of external perpetrators. Sure. Hackers and customers. Look at that. This is so funny. Okay, because you've got hackers being the main ones and then just 2% behind customers. I mean, customers are worse than organized crime. Okay, moving on. So how do we prevent computer crime? We need to have an antivirus system, an antivirus software that is up to date, folks. Up to date. Firewall software, data encryption, and backups. And there, they just mentioned this. Actually comes from the First National Bank website, where they gave some, guidelines in terms of you staying safe. So feel free to read through that. Right, and that was module 1.8. So module 2.2 took us now into networks, and we started looking at the network basics. So what is a network? This is the fundamental, definition that you are going to use for all the different types of networks. You're talking about two or more computing devices connected through some sort of media. Now, why do we say some sort of media? Because it can be wired, it can be wireless, and then there are different types of wired cables for the purpose of sharing information. Why do we say computing devices? Because is it just a computer? Or can we use a smartphone? Can we use a tablet? We can use any of those. So this is why we indicate two or more computing devices. Has to be two because you're sharing. I mean, you don't share with yourself, right? With just one phone. No, you need another one. So two or more computing devices connected through some sort of media for the purpose of sharing information. And so you get smaller networks like your PAN and your HAN. Your PAN is your personal area network. This is like just you sitting there connected to another device. Ranges within a few meters, and it's really just for you. You are transferring things back and forth. Okay. Now, with this type of network, I mean, you are really just transferring a couple of things. Maybe you're transferring photos from your phone to your laptop, tablet, whatever it is. You don't need to know all the disadvantages and advantages of all of these networks we're going to talk about, but I would know at least one of each. Main disadvantage with the PAN, because it's so small, limited range. Now your home area network, think of your home. That's a network within your home environment. So the Wi-Fi that you are picking up all through the house, that is your home area network. And there are obviously advantages that go with that. There are disadvantages that go with that as well. And security is the biggest issue with your wireless networks. You know when you are able to access your neighbor's Wi-Fi because they didn't put a password on it. Yeah, let's not do that. Okay, so you want to make sure that there is a strong password. Then when we set up a small network, we need to look at things like hardware. Like what sort of hardware would we need to be able to set up a small network? We would need some sort of computing device. So, whatever that is going to be. Computer, maybe it's a printer, maybe it's a smartphone, whatever the case may be, laptop, whatever. Then we need perhaps a switch. And again, this is going to depend on what our needs are. Our switch will connect computers with our cables, and then a router allows us to connect to the internet. Please know the difference between a router and a switch. And there they do mention to us, most routers today include a built-in switch. So you'll see on some of the routers, they've got multiple ports at the back, and that's what they're doing. All right. So our connection methods, we did say that we can connect wirelessly or with cables. So there you can see that's the symbol for our Wi-Fi, and then this is a physical network card that plugs into a desktop computer. You get something similar for your laptops as well, and then there's old Bluetooth as well. These are different types of connection methods. Now, folks, I would suggest you go and look into this a little bit. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? And we continue, and there you can see now, whether it's your PC and your server, they are going to have network cards, right? And so we have a cable that is plugged into that, your servers as well, and that will connect us to our network. Now we have different types of network interface controllers, and that's what I just mentioned earlier. You have ones for wired. In other words, it's a physical cable that's going to plug in there. This one allows then, with the use of this little antenna, to connect wirelessly. These days, we actually have these little USB dongles that allow us to do exactly what this. So this is kind of replaced that. But this is internal, so this will be inside the PC. And this is external. I mean, this is much easier than this. Okay. Then, in terms of software, you want to make sure everything is secure. You want to make sure you have the correct operating system as well. And then you're looking at how to connect to the internet. And please remember that when you connect to the internet, every device must have its own IP address. Okay. Now, connect to the internet, or to connect to the internet, what do we need? An internet service provider. Company that's going to give us that internet service and then a connection as well. So we asked the question, what is needed to connect to the internet? And there are a few examples of our routers. Okay, so get that definition right, know what it does, know what it's used for, and the main thing is just that this is what allows us to connect to the internet. Then our hotspots as well. Most of you know what the hotspots are. Hopefully you're not sharing too much data with friends, and make sure they are not doing updates when they connect. Also know your internet service provider. This is an ISP, and they might use the term ISP, or they might just say internet service provider, either way. This company has a permanent fast connection to the internet, and there are multiple examples of that. You can see all these in terms of what they do. Okay, now we know we can also connect to the internet via wired or wireless. Please, again, just think of the advantages and disadvantages of both. And I wanted to show you this just to add into everything, to show you that there are physical undersea cables that are running around the world. I mean, how do you think you connect into other countries, right? So yeah, they mentioned the faster your data transfer, and the more you transfer, the more expensive it is. Now, you can imagine putting all this infrastructure in place. And this is why when things go wrong, then with these cables, then what happens? It affects our internet countrywide. Then two terms that come up regularly: fiber to the home. That's your fiber line that comes into your home, that plugs into your router there. And there's just an example of a home setup, some connecting with cable, some connecting wirelessly. And then it finishes off with the term firewall. Now, this you must know, okay? It is software, but also sometimes hardware. So beware of that question. And it prevents intruders on the internet from accessing a private network which is connected to the internet. So in other words, that stands in place as a barrier between the internet and possible attacks coming through, and whether it's your home network, whether it's a school network, whatever the case is. Module 2.3, a fairly short module that went into the World Wide Web, just talking about web pages and websites. So know the difference between a www, know the difference between a website and a web page. They then talk a little bit about the structure of a website, and this goes more to what we are going to be doing this year with HTML. So they're just showing you, what a home page is, and know what a home page is, please. What's entailed in a website, the structure of a website, the fact that hyperlinks are used. Know what a web server is as well. Okay, so they mention the website must be hosted on a web server connected to the internet that hosts websites. So this is a physical computer, this web server. Then the webmaster is the person who maintains and develops the website, and there's your different languages that they use to create these websites. Here's another one that's very important. This is your URL or your Uniform Resource Locator. So this is a typical question that comes up. They ask you that, pop that address in there and then ask you, what's the site or what type of organization or where is this particular organization located. So please know that breakdown. You don't have to know everything, but just the basic ones. Okay. There they give us some more examples of the geographical abbreviations. Okay, I'm just showing you a few of them. Right, then you need to know what an IP address is. Right, this uniquely identifies you on a network of any kind. And while we type in Google, to go to Google, there's actually a particular IP address that's associated with that. Then they go through, and please, you just need to maybe know a few of these, just the different types of websites we get. We get informational type websites, news websites, business and marketing websites. You get your own, obviously, personal websites as well. There are wikis. You need to know what a wiki is, that it's a website that allows for collaborative creating and editing of web pages. There's different educational websites as well. I think most of you are aware of these things. The entertainment sites as well. Yes, advocacy sites, web applications. Now, so those are the different types. Now we're going into these. A web application, please understand this. Know this definition. It's an application. It's a program that is accessed only over the internet. It is not installed, stored, or anything like that on your local computer. In other words, on your hard drive. Then we've got content aggregators as well, which is a website or application that gathers different web content, again, depending on your preferences. So they give us two, but you just need to know what the content aggregator is and what it does. Then typical question that comes up, what is a web browser, or what is the difference between a web browser and a search engine? So there they give us a number of different web browsers, a piece of software, and that software is allowing us to go through or surf through the internet. Then they give us some features, just showing us the normal buttons that we need to know. You can get these questions sometimes in your theory with a picture there, and then asking you to identify these different areas. Then, this is exactly what I said earlier, the difference between the web browser and the search engine. So there are some examples of search engines. What is it? It's also a program. What is it used for? To search for documents on the web by using keywords or phrases. Okay. And then they just give us a few tips for successfully searching or successfully finding information on the internet. Okay, and that's why they just mentioned a bibliography is essential when doing research. The last one for the term is our electronic communication. So most of us are very familiar with electronic communication, any form of communication that's done electronically. I mean, we've got email. I'm not going to go through all of that, but you know what email is. Just know it as from the side of a definition. So what is email? And then be able to give an example. You must, however, know the difference between ISP-based email and web-based. Web-based, we are accessing it only through the internet. It's free of charge. It's online. Whereas your ISP-based one, you are going to pay an ISP for access. You're going to have the program many times stored on your hard drive, and then your email is actually downloaded onto your computer. Then this as well, please know this breakdown. Your username, when you look at any email address, is before the @ then the email provider comes after the @. Okay, so there's another example. mary.jones@mweb.co.za. Mary Jones is the username. The service provider is at MWeb. The type of organization, it's a company, and where is that company located? In South Africa. So this is typical of what you could get tested on. When you put all of that together, everything after the @ becomes the domain. Okay, here's another one. John Strong is the username. You see the service provider, You see the type of organization, and we see, in this case, there's no geographical location. It's just the .com, which is a commercial site, and you see there our domain. Okay. Right, then they just mentioned some practical uses of email. I think, folks, we should all be familiar with how to send emails. Please, that's another one. The CC and BCC, know the difference. Your CC is your carbon copy. So everyone that you want to send it to someone and copy someone else in so that they can see the email. The person who you're sending it to will see that as well. But if it's BCC, I won't see who copies of this email was sent to. Okay, it's blind carbon copy. Okay, so this is just how to reply to emails as well, forwarding emails, and then adding attachments as well. Now, here you could get questions in terms of the size limitations, and this one over here, if your file has an exe, it might sometimes not be allowed because the program thinks that it is a virus. And they go through the steps of how to attach a file to an email. Okay. They just mentioned to open that. We know our social networks. I mean, we don't even have to go through that. We're all very well aware of social networking sites. Instant messaging as well. When we talk about messaging in real time, it means I can see the message come through. I can respond to it immediately. I can see the person typing. I can see that there's blue ticks indicating the person's read it. So that's all part of the instant messaging and chat applications. Then they just mentioned web blogs, and a blog is like an online diary. So that's situated on a website, and you get many different types of blogs: personal, business, journalism blogs. So there's a lot of things out there. You also get forums, which is similar to a news group, but it's a bit more formal. People share ideas and solve problems. When it comes to particular products or different things that they have on these forums. I mean, you can have forums for 4x4 and forums for Windows issues, hardware and software, all these different things. Instant messaging, we are also very well briefed on. And then the last one, I think, is netiquette and email. So netiquette, please, it's just having good manners online. And then they just mention a few things. Know at least 2 of these, please, because this is now specific to netiquette and email. All right. We don't use capital letters and put in large attachments and things like that. So it's just having good manners when dealing with email. They mention the same for social networking. All right. So please do have a look through that. And then this, I just included the 10 core rules for netiquette. So you can have a look at that when you have some time. All right, and then they finished off with module 6.3, that's processing information and presenting a solution. Folks, you can just read through this. There's nothing major that we needed to really focus on. It really dealt with things for the PAT, for those from the DBE. So they just mention here how to use and process information. So just go through that, have a read through that, understand again. And you can see there, based on the PAT, how to process data and information, how we can build a framework for our report, putting the headings in. So I would say for IEB learners, this will really only play a role when you get to grade 12. For the DBE learners, you would have been busy with this already when it comes to your PAT. Okay, so for the PAT, very, very important. Go through this, make sure your PAT lines up with this as well, but it's really just focusing on that. Okay, that's why you see Excel, Word, PowerPoint there as well. But it's a very good tool. It's a very good tool. So make use of that. Acknowledging the sources in your PAT as well. And like I said, IEB learners, this is going to be for you when it comes to grade 12. Right, and that's it for our theory modules for term 3, grade 10. That's everything in a nutshell that you need to know to get through this